in Hawaii we have the night marchers, and the night marchers are these people that you would see marching at night with torches, and you would normally associate them with their look. And if they look at you, you turn to stone. And that is a legend that spanned forth from as long as I could remember, as long as I could legitimately remember. And I feel like this experience is somewhat similar to that. Hello and welcome back to a little series where I talk about my experience with ghosts in high school. And it's kind of a weird series that I want to be doing on these ghosts because there are many different interpretations to what I see. Um, the doctors say that I have schizophrenia, but I don't entirely. I don't know if that's all that's happening. You know what I mean? Because my family has been a very religious family, and my family has had experience with ghosts in the past. Um, my parents grew up when Hawaii was still in the plantation days, and so it was really hard work. And my grandfather talked about how he would see impossible things in the pineapple fields, and my dad would often talk about how strange things would happen in the house, and he would be able to feel the presence of people who weren't actually there. Now, fast forward to me. I've been in a couple mental hospitals in the past, and they've been some of the strangest experiences I've ever had. The doctors say I have schizophrenia and GAD and OCD and depression, and I suffered from an addiction, but regardless about all of that, I'm going to talk to you about a special interpretation that I've heard from one of my high school teachers. And I just think it's extremely interesting. And I think that a lot of people could also find this a bit interesting. Because whenever I think about my disorder, whenever I think about that, I think a lot of it came from having a genetic disposition to it. Because my great aunt was institutionalized for the majority of her life, and my family assumes that I genetically had what she had. We both experience the same thing. And it's completely separate from experiencing spirits or demons or angels or entities and stuff like that. But one of my high school teachers begged to differ. He said that, oh, you are experiencing these entities. And I thought that was a very interesting take. So I'm going to take you through the journey of one special encounter with the Dab Tsog. So I did talk about this a little bit in my other high school, what is it called? I think I named it high school ghost stories. I did go over it for a little bit, but I want to go over it a little bit more in detail now. So from fifth, sixth grade all the way up to now, the college level me, I've been experiencing a sort of a thing similar to sleep paralysis. Now it's not exactly sleep paralysis because I was able to move. I just wasn't able to move much. It was almost as if my hands were being held down to my bed, and it wasn't as if, because when your hands are being held down, like say by the wrist, you can still move your fingers, you can move your elbow, but if it's being held down, you can't move it, you can't remove it. You know what I mean? It's being held down. Obviously, how many times do I have to repeat that? But it's almost as if I was being held down, as repetitive as that seems. So, continuing on, I would see this entity at the foot of my bed or in the doorway or from my closet coming towards me in a sort of looming sense. I was never actually hurt. The only thing that I've had was a couple bruises, and I genuinely think that the thing that I saw didn't cause those bruises. It was probably me flailing around in bed, falling out of bed sometimes and hitting my hands and legs on the wall because my bed is right up against the wall. I genuinely don't think that I've actually been hurt by this thing, but I brought it up to one of my teachers in my high school, and he was adamant about how it's a entity called the Dab Tsog. And it's an entity that, if you look in the history of it, people have died from extreme fear. And it's I'm not entirely sure about the details, but it's a fear that is so intense you are physically affected by it. Now you are physically affected by it in a fatal way. And based on the stuff that I've read about the Dab Tsog, it's a entity that appears in a lot of different cultures. I did talk about this in my other video, but I want to talk about it again. In the Norse, they have a name for her, the night hag. They call her Mara. And they say that the only way to survive Mara is to ignore it. Look away. Wait till she goes away. And for a while that worked with me. I just ignored it. I talked about this before, but I would have my phone and I would play a podcast at night so that when I go to sleep, I can wake up and I can listen to the podcast and just focus on the podcast until the episode ends. I realize episode can be taken many different ways, but regardless, until the podcast ends or until the thing goes away. And I kind of wondered, I was like, the Dab Tsog. That is a Asian spirit or Asian entity or demon or whatever the hell you want to call it. I'm not entirely sure. And it's found its way all the way from Asia to here, to Hawaii. And I thought that was a very strange way of putting it. Again, in Hawaii, in Hawaii we have the night marchers. And the night marchers are these people that you would see marching at night with torches, and you would normally associate them with their look, and if they look at you, you turn to stone. And that is a legend that spanned forth from as long as I could remember, as long as I could legitimately remember. And I feel like this experience is somewhat similar to that. They would often say that the night marchers come walking through the suburbs or the town or stuff like that on Oahu or in Hawaii, because those places used to be where the night marchers normally walked before it was industrialized. I guess does that make sense? Yeah, I think that does make sense. And so I kind of had it in the back of my mind that what I was experiencing was a night marcher. I also had in the back of my mind that it was a Dab Tsog. I also had it in the back of my mind that it was a incubus, which is another spirit I'm going to talk about at a different time. And I also had it in my mind that it was just a result of a psychotic episode. And I genuinely don't know which one is true. But I think it doesn't really matter which one is true and which one isn't true, because it's there. I'm experiencing it. Doesn't matter what interpretation I listen to. Regardless, no matter what interpretation I choose to believe, it's still there, and I'll have to do what I can to move on with it or move on from it. So how did I move on from it? So my teacher, he recommended I do this ritual. Well, not really a ritual. He said buy sage and burn the sage and let the fumes or the smoke cleanse my house. Now, I didn't know if this would actually work because I did have the house blessed a while ago because I was seeing things in the house, and I told my parents, and my parents were like, oh, spirits, we need to get the house blessed. And so, or my mom was like, spirits, we need to get the house blessed. My dad was like, no, it's nothing. We're just seeing things. So we got the house blessed and didn't really change much. So I wasn't expecting this whole sage thing to work, but it did for a while. I mean, I wouldn't burn a lot of it. I would just take a little leaf, get a lighter, light it up a little bit, wave it around, and then put it out. That's all I would do. I wouldn't go around and saturating the entire house with sage. I did do the same thing with rosemary, and I don't know if that's the same thing, but I just figured I'd do it. And I do have a smoke detector, so it probably wouldn't be a good idea to be burning copious amounts of leaves in my house. But for a while it worked, up until my second hospitalization in a mental hospital, which is when I was put on some new drugs, and let's just say I haven't been visited by the Dab Tsog in a while. I want to say probably up to 6 months ago. I think 6 months ago was the last time, because I vividly remember the last time, and it wasn't scary. It was just another one of those nights. And little did I know that it would be the last one, at least for a while. I don't want to jinx it. The new meds really do knock me out, so I don't remember anything that happens in the time span between 10 o'clock and 5 o'clock. So it could happen, and I just don't know. Because I've been told that I do things in the time between 10 a.m. and 5, or 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. I've been told that I do things then that I have no recollection of, so maybe it did happen and I just don't remember it. I don't know. Same thing when it comes to what these things really are. I don't know. But I think that it's a very interesting interpretation. And I hope you enjoyed. So I'm gonna leave you off with that for now. And if you're in an emergency, I have emergency links down below. If you need to talk to someone, my DMs are always open. Social media is down below. Don't forget to subscribe, like, do all that bullshit. And I'll catch you in the next one. Ohui ho, alamo pono.